My name is Michaela Hynie, and I'm a social and cultural psychologist who's interested in how you can build community resilience through building social support and through strong social relationships. I've been studying this with my colleagues here at York and also with colleagues at the University of Rwanda. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the country of Rwanda, it's a small country located in East Africa with a population of about 11 million people. It's a relatively poor country. It's in the bottom third of the Human Development Index. The average lifespan is around 56 years. French was the official language until about 15 years ago, and then it switched to English. Many people are bilingual, French and English, but everybody also speaks Kinyarwanda. If you have heard anything about Rwanda, what you have probably heard about is Rwanda in 1994. After decades of conflict between Hutu and Tutsi, there was an explosion of violence. Within 100 days, somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million Tutsi and moderate Hutu were murdered, often with machetes and other kinds of farm implements, often by neighbors, community members, and people they knew. In the 21 years since the genocide, Rwanda has been rebuilding a safe, secure community. The government of Rwanda has been trying very actively to engage traditional values and traditional Rwandan beliefs as part of this rebuilding process. And in order to understand what those beliefs are, you need to understand that Rwanda is an agrarian society. It's a society where 90% of the population engages in subsistence farming. Like many farming cultures, it's highly collectivist. And that means that people's sense of identity is very strongly tied to their social roles and relationships. It means that the goals of the community you belong to often take precedence over your own goals. And it means that the boundary between who is in your in-group and who is outside of your group is very strong. Now, those may be factors that have actually contributed to some of the violence that occurred between groups, but there are also factors that you can build on to rebuild a new, strong, coherent society. The government has been using these traditional values and reinstating traditional practices as a way of rebuilding community. One example of this is something that is called umuganda. The last Saturday of every month, every member of every community returns to the community that they're registered in and spend Saturday morning working on a collective community project, working together to rebuild their community. A common social welfare practice that they have taken up again is something called garinka, the idea that every poor family should have a cow, a milk cow. Cows are very important in Rwandan culture. That cow allows the poor family to have nutrition from the milk and also to sell the milk in order to bring in some income. And when that cow has a calf, the family donates that calf to another poor family, thereby strengthening this notion of mutual support. The importance of mutual support comes out very clearly if you look at common sayings within the Rwandan culture. Ijiri kimwe and tikigora ishyamba. A single tree does not make a forest. Abishize hamwe and takabananira. Nothing is impossible for those who work together. But not only is mutual support incredibly important in this collectivist society, but so is the notion of being self-sufficient. So other sayings reflect the importance of being able to stand for yourself, take care of yourself. Akimuhana kaza imbora ihise. Do not wait for others to help you. You have the resources to help yourself. So what does social support look like in a culture that places so much emphasis on both mutual support, but also on self-sufficiency? We explored this working with social workers in the Rwandan context. These are social workers who have been trained in international social work theory, but who are practicing in the Rwandan context and who have lived their lives in the Rwandan culture. When we asked professional social workers how they understand the notion of support, they talked about a construct they called uranana, the idea of positive relationships, mutual support, and interdependence. And when they talked about how they provided support to others in need, they did talk about individual counseling, the way we would recognize it here in North America. Empathy, active listening, acceptance. But this kind of individual counseling was something that was typically only offered for those individuals who were socially isolated, living in urban settings, or who were experiencing extreme grief. In most cases, what social workers would do to offer support was encourage the individual to reconnect to working groups or neighborhood communities. And they would support volunteers in these communities to continue this network of mutual support. That's very different from the individualized notion of support that we have in North America, and it suggests that there may be a kind of collective resilience that's more predominant in the Rwandan context. They also talked about different ways in which you interact with people in need, and in particular, the importance of reaching out to people in need rather than waiting for them to come to you. So, for example, they talked about uramagera. You identify people in need and you approach them and see how you can help them. Umakusura, you visit them in their home. Again, you go to them. We have seen this in other collectivist cultures, where we actually find that people who have to ask for help do worse than people in need who do not ask. Because having to ask for help makes you a burden on others. It reflects the fact that perhaps your community is actually not attending to your needs. And perhaps in a culture like Rwanda, where self-sufficiency is also important, it may reflect a failure of self-sufficiency. The other construct that came up, or idea that came up that was interesting, umakabuhafi, is that you simply stay close to the person, the importance of mere physical presence. This is interesting because recent research on social support suggests that the benefit of social support may come just through being able to be with other people, which allows you to self-regulate and manage your own emotions. And it seems as if the Rwandans are doing this naturally. So why should we be studying social support in Rwanda? It's helping us expand our understanding of the construct of social support, which allows us to provide richer, deeper, and perhaps more effective support, not just in Rwanda, but also here in Canada. But also because Rwanda is an example of a country where people have used these traditional social support values to rebuild following conflict. And this gives us hope for how we can all connect together in the future.